this webinar is an opportunity for me to share my personal workflow of how I get images from the camera into Lightroom, and then what I do to get them ready to process. It's my personal workflow, and I want to kind of share with you how I go about organizing my images. I have images. My first set of digital images that I started working on were from 1996, and so from 1996 through yesterday, which is when the last time I took some shots, I've been managing my images with Lightroom. Granted, Lightroom wasn't out that long ago, but once it came out, I started using it. So just really quickly, one more time, Lightroom 4 beta was released last night, but we're not going to be using it in this webinar. It will be supported by the Perfect Photo Suite, but obviously we're not officially supporting it now because it's still a beta product. We are still testing with it. So there's that. Now, Joanna is asking if we can talk about Aperture. Actually, Joanna, a few weeks ago, my good friend Jacob Lucas did an Aperture workflow webinar, and I have that ready to post, so I'm going to be posting that online as well. All right, let's just begin again. I want to work through this because I actually have a limited amount of time today to do the webinar. What I have here is a folder. Oops, went on the wrong screen. So this folder right here contains a bunch of raw files, these RAF files that I took with my Fuji X100 a couple weeks ago, December 12th, or actually no, January 3rd, 2012. So not even a couple weeks ago, a week ago. And what I want to do is, actually these we can get rid of. I don't need those two. I want to get these into Lightroom. So let's start by creating a new catalog in Lightroom. I'm going to go ahead and launch Lightroom over here, and it's going to launch in a default doc. So here we go. This is the default catalog that we have here. And right off the bat, let's create a new catalog. Now, my personal workflow is I create a new catalog twice a year, once on January 1st and once on July 1st. So this way, I have only 6 months of images per catalog because Lightroom is a database. And I know that Lightroom handles large amounts of files really well. Lightroom 3 does it a lot better than Lightroom 2. But still, I prefer to have kind of a breakdown. So first thing I'm going to do is let's go and create a new catalog. So I'm going to go to File and then New Catalog. And it asks you, where do you want to save this catalog? So I'll just go ahead right here in the Pictures folder or wherever you want. And usually this is how I do it. So this is exactly what I do. We just started a new year, so the first thing I would do is I would create a master folder called 2012. Within 2012, I'd create one more folder called First Half. I create that folder, and then within that folder here, I will name the catalog First Half 2012. Then I'll hit Create. So Lightroom will close out itself and then open up in this new catalog. The first thing I usually do when I start a new catalog is I'll go to the Lightroom menu item. And this will work on the Mac and Windows version. I'll go to the catalog settings here. And I personally turn off the backup option. I set backup to never because I have a separate backup solution. I do an automatic backup solution. And so I don't want Lightroom to duplicate the backup efforts. The other thing that I like to do is I like to go to the metadata folder, or metadata tab rather, and turn this option on, automatically write changes into XMP. The XMP is the sidecar file. So you see these, here are my raw files. RAF is the Fuji RAW system. Every RAW file, whether it's Canon or Nikon, excluding DNG, will have this XMP file. And as people are asking what my backup solution is, I'll go over that at the end, everyone. I promise. The XMP file, every RAW file has an XMP file, and the XMP file has the instructions. Basically, any change you make is stored in this file, not on the RAW. You're not ever actually editing a RAW file. You're editing the XMP, and so when you, as I was here in the catalog settings, if I turn this option on, the Lightroom will automatically write any edits I make to that XMP file. So it saves one step. So that's the first thing I do. I'll also usually keep the modular bar open, and that's just so I can see what module I'm in. Now it's time to import. I'm going to go to File and then Import. And there was a question here by Mark. So Mark asked if I bring my raw files onto the hard drive. No, I just put it to the hard drive because I didn't have my camera. So I just wanted to have the files. Normally I would connect my CF card or my SD card to a card reader, and I'd go here, File, Import Photos. And so here's what we're going to do. Normally, when I import from a card, I will be on the copy option here at the top. If you want to import as a DNG, which is Adobe's kind of raw format, you can do that. And the advantage of using a DNG is a DNG wraps up these two files into one. It's an uncompressed file, but you don't need the sidecar. For me, I prefer not having any process touch my original raw file, so that's why I stick with that. So that's, Victor, the people here who are asking about DNG, and Ed's asking if I could recommend it. It's not. I don't recommend it, or I'm not an advocate or against it. Everyone has their preferences. I know that Scott Kelby personally loves DNG. He talks about it and he teaches it. I personally prefer RAW because it is the original, untouched, unadulterated file that the camera produced. That's it. So, in this case, because I'm actually just adding images that are already local, I'm going to click Add. Actually, you know what? I'll do a copy or a move. That'll be easier. And I'm going to select my source. So right now it's on my studio machine under Users, On One Software, Desktop, Images. So you can see we've got our images here. And it's caching the thumbnails. Now, let's go over a few of the options on the right here. So what we're going to do is on the left is the source over here, and on the right is the destination. And first thing I'm going to do is specify the file handling. In this case here, I'm going to keep the render previews to minimal because I don't want to waste time or processor rendering previews. I always check don't import suspected duplicates because this will ensure that in the event that I I put the same card in the future, it won't import the same images twice. Mike, I see your question about the auto import, and I'll show you that in a minute. The next thing that I'm going to do is go to the file renaming. So this I always do, and I use this default right here. I turn on file renaming, which will basically rename the files, and I have it set to the date/file name. And it's the date that the image was taken. So you can see I already imported these into a Lightroom catalog, and it's 2012, January 3rd, with the original Fuji file name. Excuse me. I leave the extension as is. I don't apply any develop settings. Under the Apply During Import section, I don't ever apply any develop settings. However, I will build a metadata preset. So what is a metadata preset? The metadata contains information about the image that's not visible. So, for instance, let's go to the dropdown and create a new metadata preset. We'll call this, Brian Matiash 2012 metadata. That's what I typically do. And I'll start with the copyright over here. I'll put the year, 2012. The copyright status will be copyrighted. Rights usage term, I type in all rights reserved. And then if you have a URL to your copyright information, you would put it here. And I think mine is www.brianmatiash.com/usage is I believe. Now here for the IPTC creator, this is just information about you. So I'll say Brian Matiash, my address, and I'll just put Portland, Oregon, 97214, USA. Here, if you want to put a phone number, I don't usually do a phone number. I'll put my email address. My business, when I had my photography company, my studio, I had photos at brianmatiash.com, my website. So this is information that basically is assigned to every image. And it's something that you'll want to do. And then here, depending on how much information you want to put in, this is really useful for stock photographers. For me, I don't really use it. I just do the standard information here. I have my name, my address, my phone number, all that information, the copyright information. And then what I'll do is I'll save it. And the way you save it is by dropping down the preset and save current as new preset. And so we'll call this, again, Brian Matiash 2000. I'll just call it 2012. Create. So there's a preset. Now the reason why we did that is, watch, if I cancel, now if I go back to that drop down, there's my preset, Brian Matiash 2012. So every time I go forward with importing new photos into this catalog, I've got my preset for the metadata. So I know that every image will have my name, my copyright information, my contact information. It's important. John asks a great question. What's going on, John? I like John. John's a good guy. John asks if this automatically updates every year, and the answer is no. In fact, on January 1st, I put a post on my Google Plus and my Facebook profile basically saying, hey, photographers, don't forget, new year, you need a new preset, which means you would go here, edit the preset, and drop down to select this Brian Matiash, and then just change that year right there to 2013. So that's a great question. You'll want to do that. Now, keywords. And everyone, I see your questions. I'm going to blast through. These are questions that we can talk about at the end. We don't need to do it right now. I will be getting to your questions. This is probably my favorite webinar. I love talking about workflow. So I will get to it. Now, keywords are take it or leave it. If you have OCD like me and you just need to keyword things, this is great. If you don't care, then you don't need to. So for here, I try to, because these keywords will apply to every single image, I try to be as broad as possible. So things I'll usually do is I'll put the camera, Fuji, X100, Staten Island. This is where all the images were taken. New York, New York City, USA, America. And then I'll go into some of the common details like water, beach, cool, sand, long exposure. And so these are things, because almost all of these images were long exposure images. And so they can apply for the most part to the scene. After that, I specify the destination. Where do I want it? And so here I will just keep it as, let's go to the On1 software. We'll go to the desktop, and we'll just create a new folder. I'm going to right-click on the desktop right here, and I'm going to create new folder. And I'll just call the new folder, my usual folder structure is the month and the day, so 01, 03, so January 3rd. And I would call this South Beach Shoot, because I was on South Beach. Actually, so right there, that was another thing I should do here is call this South Beach, the location. With that done, I'm ready to hit import. So I'm going to press import, and I'm going to bring them into the catalog. So what it's doing is it's physically moving these images. And when it's done, it'll start rendering the previews. So you can see that if I select on any image here, it has the keywords that we associated to it. The next thing that I will do is, and also just to show you, if you scroll down to any single image, notice you've got the creator, you've got the copyright, the year. So you've got that information. So, hey Andrew, what's going on? Good to see you. So what I'll usually do here is, and these are kind of, you can take it or leave it here. With the new catalog and new Lightroom install, the first thing I'll do is I'm going to right-click in the background, and I like to have a dark gray background because I don't like, the default is medium gray. I don't like that contrast between the dark sides and the background here, so I like to have a dark gray with no pinstripes. It kind of has a more even feel. Some people also like to have it as black, just because you don't have any other distractions around the image, but I prefer dark gray. The next thing that I'll do is, almost always when I'm shooting a color checker passport by X-Rite. So what I would do is I would press W on my keyboard. And by pressing W, you're brought to the white balance picker. And so I'm going to pick this color right here for my white balance. And let me see if it changes here any. All right, I like that one better. So with that done, I have a custom white balance here. I'm going to hit Command A or Control A. And what that does is it selects all of the images in this catalog. Because all of the images were taken around the same time of day with the same lens, my Fuji X100, with the same filter on it, I can go to the bottom over here in the library module and press Sync Settings. The only thing I'm going to do here is, I do this on every shoot. I'm going to deselect everything on the sync settings, check none, and the only thing I'm going to select is the white balance. And what this will do is it'll sync the white balance from that first image to all of the other ones. By doing that, it'll correct the white balance. So you can see, look at that. That's a correct white balance. Now watch, it'll correct it here too, or unless it already corrected it. Or let's go here to this one, this image right here. I have to wait probably for the white balance, for the sync process to complete to get to the image. But this is definitely not a correct white balance. Oops. So by doing that, what we were able to do is ensure that we have correct, consistent white balance throughout the image. And that's the first thing I'll typically do here. Why that patch, Jerry? Because on a color checker passport, this patch is your standard gray right there. This patch correlates to that patch, correlates to that patch. So there you go. Now, the next thing that I'll do is I want to kind of show you how I customize the look of my screen here. By default, when you are in your grid view, it shows you this kind of brief summary screen. You can see these large numbers on the top left of each thumbnail. I don't prefer that. I prefer the kind of expanded view. And to customize that, if you go to View, we'll go to View Options, under View. And for the grid view, we're going to change it from compact to expanded cells. And this gives you a lot more information. The first thing that I'll do is I will include the color labels, because I like to use a combination of color and stars for my ratings. And then these 4 fields here, think of, you see the file, each bar over here, there are 4 fields, top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right. I like to customize it pretty simply. The first thing I'll do is on the top left, which is the darker font, I like to do the exposure and the ISO. So this gives me a quick snapshot view. It was a 42-second exposure at f11 at ISO 200. That's all the information I need. On the top right, I have none. I don't need any other information there. On the bottom left, I'll do the base file name. So that's just the file name without the extension. And on the bottom right, I'll do the file extension so I can see what it is. The alternative is you can also do the full file name and not have anything. Sometimes that works as well. And that's pretty much all I'll do here. I don't have any other customizations. This is exactly how I have it at home. Ernesto's asking what letter did I press to get white balance? It's pretty simple. Just press W for white, and that will bring you straight to the white balance color picker. And then you typically want to put it on a target that's neutral gray. And I honestly live and die by my color checker passport. This thing goes with me every single place. Because when you're shooting long exposures like this one, and you have either the B+W filter or the League Big Stop, or if we're talking about 10-stop filters, they add a significant color cast to the image, and you want to mitigate that, and you do that by getting a correct white balance. All right, so that's basically, so what we've done so far is we've imported our images and we've basically customized our look. The next thing that we want to do is start rating. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole entire catalog, but I'm going to show you how I rate. The rating system right now is pretty basic. It's either, yeah, I want to work on this, or no, this is definitely technically useless to me. So I start here and I'll go through, and in this case here I have 3 shots, 1, 2, 3. And I look to see, are any of these, first of all, worthwhile? And so I like this one right here out of the other 2. So the first thing I would do is I'd hit 1, and what that does is it gives me a star, 1 star. I'll go to this one and I'll hit X, which will reject it. And then I'll go to this one and hit X to reject it because I don't need them. So if I go to the grid view, you can see this one will be kept, these 2 will be deleted. They're flagged for rejection. And then we keep going on. This one I don't want, it's too dark. This one looks possible. This one is a bit too dark. That one's a bit too bright, but I like it. So I'm going to keep this one, and I'm going to delete the other 3. I don't need them. Color checker, passport references I'll keep. This jetty one, I know I have a better one. And the reason why is if you look on the right over here, I didn't leave it enough space in the frame. I do not like how the proximity of the pylon to the end of the frame, whereas if I go to the next frame, that gives me a nice amount of spread. So I'll delete this one, and I'll press 1 here to flag it for editing. And basically keep going. You know, this one looks good. That one looks good too. What I'll do here is I'll actually probably use perfect layers to combine the sky with the foreground. In this image here, the foreground is nicer. In this image here, the sky is more favorable, so I'll combine them. And so that's what I do here. I'll go through and I basically prep images like this image here. This is an image I actually posted to my Google Plus page about 2 hours ago, the edited version. This is the original. So I'll go through here and I'll edit it. And so when I'm done, let's say I'm done editing, the next thing I'll do is I'm going to wipe out the rejected photos. I don't want them in view, and I don't need them on my computer. So if I go to Photo, I can go to Delete Rejected Photos at the very bottom. And what that'll do is it'll say, okay, you've got these 6 rejected photos. Do you want to just remove them but keep the files, or do you want to delete the files altogether? I am pretty good at this in terms of if I've rejected a photo, I'm pretty certain that I'll never want it again. So I delete it from the disk. I don't need it, and it's gone. It's in the recycle bin over here. And so that's basically what I would do when I'm filtering the images. The other thing that I'll do is, now it's time, all right, let's say I've got these 4 images that have 1 stars. Now it's time to get them into a view that I can work on. Because right here I still have a bunch of images that I haven't yet maybe tagged or whatever the case is. So to do that, I'll create a smart collection. And this is going to be a very simple smart collection. Basically, I'll go to the collections over here on the left. I'll press a plus sign, and I'm going to go to Create Smart Collection. A smart collection is a dynamic filter. Basically, it's always looking at your catalog to see if any image matches a certain criteria that you have set. So what I'm going to say here is this is images to process. And I'm going to say that the rating, you have all these different options for variables. I'm going to say the rating is, not is greater or equal to, is equals 1 star. So anytime there's an image with just 1 star, put it in a separate folder. I'll hit create, and right here you can see, boom, there are the 4 images. Now pay attention to this. We have right here our smart collection, images to process 4. Let's say I go to this shot here. I had some fun in the sand and I just wrote a little message, oh hi 2012. Let's say, oh, you know what, I want to work on this. I'll press 1. Now look, on the left here, images to process, it up to 5. It automatically took that 5th image. So now we have 5 images here. Let's say, for instance, I come back and I'm like, you know what, this image here, not really doing it for me. I can go and press 0 to remove it, and it automatically removes that file from the Smart Collection because you removed the criteria for the Smart Collection. So let's say we've got an image here. I've got this image. I want to start working on it. What I would typically do is when I'm ready to work on an image, I'll usually send it to the suite. And so you do that by going to the File menu. We'll go to Plugin Extras, and we'll go to Perfect Photo Suite. And what this does is it sends a copy of it. It creates a PDF copy, or not a PDF, a PSD copy, and sends it to Lightroom. So here in Lightroom, or in Perfect Photo Suite, I'll go to Effects, and I'm just going to do a very basic black and white conversion, just so that we can see it. So once in here, I'll go ahead and I'll apply, say, a blue filter. And I might drag it back a bit just to give it a little bit of a subtle color. Something like that, to give it a kind of a vintagey look. And let's say I'm done, I'll press apply. And then when I'm back in perfect layers, I'll press save. What perfect layers is doing is it's updating that PSD file. And then if I close out of here and go back to Lightroom, you can see it automatically creates another file with the updated information. So what I'll do with this image here is I'm going to go to the Develop module. This is typically my stuff. I'm not even making this up. What I usually do is from Lightroom, I import. I get my keywords and my basic information down. I get my custom white balance. I'll do my rating. And then I send it to the Perfect Photo Suite. When I'm done with the Perfect Photo Suite, I go to the Develop module, and here's where I'll use certain things. I'm not going to go ahead and spend too much time on each of these settings because we actually have a webinar that we did a couple months ago. That's already live, I believe, by Seth Resnick on the Develop module. But I'll do, in this case here, what I probably will do is I'll bring the fill light. And I got to say, you know, like I said, I've been using Lightroom 4 for a little bit now, for a few weeks, and I already know I love the updated Develop sliders. They do such a nice job compared to these, but because this is a production product, this is what I'm going to use. So in this case, I'll bring fill light up to bring out some of the shadow details. And then what I might do is take the neutral density filter, the graduated filter. I'll bring the brightness down and the contrast up, and just drop it down for the sky. And what that does is it gives it a bit more mood in the sky. The next thing that I'll do is I'll go to the adjustment brush, and this is just a custom thing for this shot. I'll go ahead and I'll take a clarity brush, bring the clarity up, bring the contrast up, and bring a tiny bit of brightness up, and draw on the rocks. And what that does is it gives a little bit of a nice little texture, localized texture boost to the rocks, because I want that to be a dominant point of the image. What I would also do in this case is the same brush does a nice job against the city. It brings the city out. Oh, I don't have my auto. Make sure, and this is just my own kind of preference. You see this auto mask checkbox right here? I strongly recommend pressing it, because what it'll do is it'll automatically kind of prevent the brush. It'll automatically prevent the changes from going outside of a border. So you can see how it's only affecting the skyline but not the sky. It actually does a really nice job. And so I'm just making a few quick changes there. After that, I might I'll close the adjustment brush panel. And I'll bring some contrast up. I'll boost the global clarity of the shot. And then I don't normally like using post-crop vignettes, but I think it would do a good job here. So here I'll add a slight vignette, and I'll bring the midpoint in, but I'll also blast the feathering up to make the transition smoother. And so you can see here, if we hit the backslash key, I don't know if you guys know this, but the backslash key, which is the key above the return key on your keyboard, shows you the before and after of Lightroom. So here's the before, and here's the after. So it's a nice compelling change. I might also actually, now that I'm looking at it, I might go up here to the vibrance and blast that up. Okay, so what we've done so far is we've taken the images into Lightroom, we've sorted them, and now we've edited it. Now it's time to, what I will do here is when I'm done, when I have a collection of images that are done editing, it has to go into a new Smart Collection. And so what I'll do is I'll go to the collections here, I'll press the plus button, and I'll go to Create Smart Collection. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this images, or images, what do I call it? Oh, I remember what I call it. I just call it processed images. And then in parentheses, I'll put unpublished. So, and then I'll say rating is 2 stars. And I'll hit create. So you can see here's our new Smart Collection. There's nothing in it. I'll go to my images processed, and I'll go to this image that we have right here that we finished, and I'll press 2. Now notice it drops out of view from here, and it goes in here. I know that this image is ready to be posted on the web. So, let's say I go ahead and tomorrow or the day after and I say, all right, this image, or let's say I have a whole group of images and I'm like, this image is ready to go. I want to share this online. I go ahead and I'll export it. Now I'm going to show you my personal export preset for the web. It's very basic, but it works. To export an image, I personally just I right click on the image, I'll go to export, and I'll go to the first export icon, or a menu item rather. I'm going to export to the hard drive, and so here's what you'll see. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to specify a destination. So typically what I'll do is I'll go to a specific folder, and I'm going to choose it. In this case here, we'll put it on the desktop, and I'll create a folder called to publish. So I know that this export preset will always send the image that I'm ready to publish to this folder on my desktop. I also deselect this add to this catalog because what it'll do is it'll re-import that new image. I don't really want that. If there's an existing file, I always say ask what to do. Next, what I'll do is I change the file naming from rename, and I drop down and I go to edit. I'll keep the file name, but at the end I'll always put my name, Brian Matiash. That way I know when the image goes out, when it gets exported out, it'll have my name as part of the file name, and in the event that someone drags it off their web browser, at least initially, if they choose to change the file, it's moot, but initially they'll see that it's my file name. So I'll hit done. So I know that it'll automatically rename. The format for the web, now again, this is for the web for me, is a JPEG. I keep sRGB because that's typically the web color space that I'll use. The quality I'll keep at about 90%. And then here's the big thing for me, is under the image resizing, I check resize to fit, I select long edge, and I usually do 1000 pixels at 120 pixels per inch. This is a good resolution for any web browser to get a good feel of the image. And the nice thing is that if someone does happen to take the image off, they really won't be able to get anywhere with a 1000 pixel image at 120 pixels per inch. It's a really low resolution, so enlarging it will not yield very good results. After that, I leave everything alone. There was a question earlier of how do I get my watermark if I have one? Well, you can do that here, and you can customize your watermark. Basically, you'll edit your watermark, and if you want, you can do a graphical one if you have an image already. I personally don't watermark my images. I have nothing against people who do, but I don't care for it because the image speaks for itself, and hopefully you're seeing it, or hopefully there's attribution back to the original photographer. For me, the precedent, the priority is for the viewer to enjoy the image without any graphics or text over it. You know, if it was a stock image, if it was commercial or whatever, fine, sure, watermark it. But if it's just going on your blog, I'm at your blog, I'm at your Google Plus or your Facebook profile page. I know it's you. Don't dilute the image I guess I am opining too much. But in any case, what we've done here is we've created these criteria. Make sure you hit add at the bottom here to save it as a preset. So what I'll do here is I will go ahead and save this as web export. Hit create. And now under the user presets, there's web export. The reason for that is, watch, if we cancel out of here, now any image that's in my processed images folder, all I need to do is right click, go to export, and then go down to web export. And it'll do everything automatically. So if I hide Lightroom and I go to this folder here that I created to publish, you'll see there's my image, my 1000 pixel image. See, there it is. If I go to in preview, if I go to tools and adjust size, you'll see 1000 pixels, 120 resolution. So it's ready to go. And it just speeds things up. Now, truthfully, I don't use these three. I don't print, I don't use slideshow, and I don't use web, so I apologize. I don't have those here. But I wanted to give you an idea of what my workflow is like. That's really, oh, I'm sorry, there's still one more step. One more step. We've gotten this image here, which was processed, and now we've published it. Okay. For me, again, I'm neurotic. I like to know which images have been posted and which have not. So what I'll do is I'll go to the Smart Collections and create one more Smart Collection. And this is going to be called Published. And rating will be 3 stars. Hit create. Go back to that image that we published and hit 3. So now I know that I've got 4 images here that are still need to be worked on. So let's go to, actually, this one right here, we worked on it. Remember, that was this image right over here. So what we'll want to do is go here and hit 0. That image is gone. We don't need to work on it anymore. So let's say here I go to this image, and I'm just going to do a quick develop setting. I'll just, let's bring up some fill light, let's bring up clarity, let's bring up contrast, and a little tiny bit of vibrance, and then let's just call it a day. And so what I'll do is I'll go to the grid, I'll hit 2 stars, then I'll right click and go to export, web export. So now I know that that's ready to publish, and then I'll go to 3. Boom. Now I have my 2 published images. And over the course of a year, or rather, because this catalog's only for me at least, it's only for the first 6 months, I know exactly what I've got ready to go. The key is, everyone, be organized. So what I mean by that is when you import your day's worth of shooting or your week's worth of shooting, go through and rate these images. Find out which ones you want to keep, which ones you want to delete, because if you don't do that, what you end up having is this huge, and this will grow, but this huge grid of images, and it'll become overwhelming. So if you look, everything needs discipline. In order to excel at anything, you need to be disciplined. And so that's what imaging workflows are all about, is to get disciplined. And that's why I wanted to share my personal workflow. That's basically what my workflow is. Don't get hung up on the details. Don't get hung up on the minutia. Get it simple. Focus your time on getting out and shooting and processing. Forget about all these little, the minutia of, well, what about if you do 3 stars with the color, or this or that? Don't worry about it. Get some good shots, process them, and get them online and share them. Because the only bad shot is the one that's not shared, in my opinion. So with that, we've got a ton of good questions. So let's go ahead now. That was my workflow. The webinar is being recorded. Let's go ahead and I'm going to try to go through some questions here. George is asking, all right, well, why not use DNG? And I think I answered that. That's because I just don't personally care for any. I like to keep my original raw file format, always. Mike was asking, how do you shut off the auto start Lightroom when you insert a memory card? So by default, Lightroom has this option that if you put a memory card into your card reader, it'll automatically launch Lightroom's import. To turn it off, just go to Lightroom Preferences, And then right here under General, under Import Options, there's the first checkbox. Show import dialog when a memory card is detected. I always turn that off. I want nothing to do with it. I also turn off the splash screen because I don't want to be distracted by the splash screen. The splash screen is that little Adobe Lightroom window that pops up when it first launches. So that's that. Joel's asking if we can clarify copy versus move versus add. Great question, Joel. So what Joel's referring to is over here under File, Import. At the top, there are 4 items. The first one is explanatory. Basically what it's going to do is it's going to take your images from the card, it's going to copy them and convert them to DNG. The second one is copy. This is the option I use. What it does is it takes the raw files from the card and it just copies them to whatever location I have specified on the right over here. Move will physically move images from the card or from the hard drive folder to the location that you have specified here. And then add will will put the images from the source location. So let's say you have images on your desktop or you have them in the destination that you want them in already. You can just hit add. So those are the differences. And I'll go over my backup strategy too, I promise. If you have 2 shoots on card, do you... Okay, so Bob's asking, let's just go here back to the import photos. And let's deselect the suspected duplicates, so it'll turn them on. So what Bob is saying is, let's say on this card I have 2 different shoots. Let's say actually I do have 2 different shoots. Oh, these are different. Okay, so these are from different folders. But let's say that I have these 2 different shoots here. What I would do is, yes, I would. So let's say I don't want. This is shoot 1. These first 2 rows are shoot 1, and these second 2 rows are shoot 2. So the first import, yeah, I would go to shoot 2 and I deselect them by selecting them, the images, and hitting the checkbox. And then I would import these documents. Then I'd go back to the import, and these would automatically, if I have the import suspected duplicates, if I have that turned on, these would be grayed out because they would already be imported, and I would just import the second set of images, if that makes sense. Susan's asking if catalog for each shoot is not a good idea. When I was a commercial photographer, I absolutely created a new catalog for every single shoot. Before that, when I was a wedding photographer, I created a catalog for every couple. So absolutely, it's a good idea because it helps you be organized, and it prevents cross-contamination of images from one shoot to another. However, now that I've been at On One Software for a year and a half about, I don't do commercial work, and so everything I do is personal. And I don't need to create a new catalog for each shoot. That to me is just overwhelming. Jim's asking, so Jim asks if I register with the Copyright Office. Absolutely. I didn't go bring it up over here because I just thought it'd be too confusing, but I do register my images with the Copyright Office. I typically do it once a quarter because it's just too, I don't have enough time. So how do you find photos unless you have keywords? So you can find photos based on various ways. So if I go to the grid view, I can find a photo based on certain attributes, like a rating, or I can go to the metadata and I can find a photo based on a specific camera, a specific lens. So if there are various ways you can find a photo. But if you're looking for a certain keyword or a photo based on a keyword and you didn't keyword it, it's yeah. Why use the camera name? Isn't that already in the metadata? It is, Larry, That's great. Again, it's my OCD. So what Larry's saying is, all right, well, you clearly can see right there the make is Fujifilm and the model is the FinePix X100. But for me, I refer to it as a Fuji camera, not a Fujifilm, and I don't care for the FinePix. It's just my own, my own mishigas, if you would, my own neurosis. So that's kind of how it is. I'm just trying to see here if there are any other ones. There are a ton. Can you merge catalogs? Absolutely. Peter's asking if you can merge two catalogs into one. So let's say, for instance, Peter wants to take all of his catalogs and put them into one. Yes. What you would do is this. You would select the images that you want to, from one catalog. So let's say here I want to merge all of these images here. I would select them all, and I'd go to File, Export as Catalog. I would make sure that the Include Available Previews is selected, but if you don't want to create a copy of all the images, you just want to move the information from one database to another, deselect the Export Negative Files. The negative files are the actual files themselves. So if I select that, it'll put a copy of the images that I already have, which I don't need. I'll save it as a catalog. I'll call it, first half 2011, and I'll export the catalog to my desktop. So it's exporting. You see it's quick. Now if I go to my desktop, there's the catalog. Now the next step is we'll go to Lightroom. Now you'll go to the catalog that you want to merge into. So let's just go to that Lightroom, the default catalog. Let's pretend that this is the second half catalog for 2011. Now to get those images in, go to File, and then Import from Catalog. Not Import Photos, but Import from Catalog. Navigate to that folder. So on the desktop, it was called First Half 2011. Select the catalog and hit Choose. It says here there are the 49 images. And for me, it's Add New Photos to Catalog without moving. Because I don't want to move it, I'll hit Import. It's basically importing everything. And then when it's done, there they are, and there are keywords, there's everything. So there you go. And notice the important thing, the ratings are there. Because you exported the catalog, all of your metadata, including the rating system, has been brought over. So that's how you would do it. Oh, what if I have brackets? That's a great question. So Ernesto's asking, what if you had 7 shots because you did HDR? So let's pretend that, let's just pretend this, these 5 images, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say they're brackets for a tone map to tone map an HDR image. What I would do here is I would select them. I'd go to Photo, and I'd stack them by going to Stacking and Group into Stack. This basically takes those 5 images and it puts them into under 1. That way I know these 5 images are part of a stack. And then I would go and I would give them a 1. That way I know that they're ready to process. If you want to take it a step further, and this is just going crazy, but you can go here, go to Create Smart Collection, and say rating is 1. Hit the plus sign to add another criteria, and then we can say the color is blue. Because it's the color I can actually see. And we'll say these are brackets to tone map. Hit create. And now what I'll do is I'll go to those 5 images here. We said it was these 5, and I add a color of blue. And so there they are. There are my brackets right there. And so I would know, oh, okay, these 5 go together. I'll select them, and I'll send them to Photomatics. So I'm seeing a lot of comments or questions about, well, or if you have multiple catalogs, how do you know where your images are? The only good answer I can give you is I just know. I know. I've been doing it for so long. I just know if it's in a certain catalog in a certain year. It's just kind of how it is. Can you export to Google Plus? Not directly. Kelly, you can export to Picasa, but I'm not happy with that, so I just do it manually. When would I use a create virtual copy? If I wanted to do a quick test on an image while seeing the original, I would do a virtual copy. Wow, there are so many questions. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. I actually do have to end this because I have to go pick up one of our partners from the airport, and I don't want to be late. How about this? We'll do a part 2 of this. Actually, I'm doing another one at the end of the month. But is there a max number of files for one catalog? Peter, I don't think there is. Thank you, Andrew. It's good to see you here, Andrew. Oh, the backup strategy. All right. Backup strategy. Backup strategy is this. This is my personal thing. I use a Drobo at home as my production volume. I work off of the Drobo. The Drobo connects to my Mac Pro via eSATA. And I use a product called ChronoSync. So, and this is on the Mac. I think there's a Windows version, but I'm not 100% sure. But basically what ChronoSync allows me to do, and I'll put the URL to this product in the chat module now for you guys. What I do is I use ChronoSync. Why is the internet so slow? Oh, because we're doing a webinar. ChronoSync allows me to specify certain folders to back up to external hard drives. So at 1 a.m. every morning, ChronoSync goes to my folders and it looks to my photos only the photo folder. I use Time Machine for my system backup, but ChronoSync will go to my photo folders, my master photo library, and it will back up any incremental changes. So if I add a new file or if I update one, it'll automatically back it up every single morning. Now I also have an offsite backup. Basically, I have an external. I have this. Let me see if. Here we go. I have this. I have the G-Tech 4 terabyte RAID. I have this guy right here. So I bring this to. This is in my office. This is at my desk right now. It has my entire life of images. Every 2 weeks, I have a calendar event that reminds me to bring it home. I actually brought it home last night. And I did an incremental change. So, in the event that my house blows up, the worst thing that could happen is I would have 2 weeks worth of missing images because I've got this sitting in my desk. It's important to have an off-site backup.